Well, hello and welcome today to our webinar about key trends and challenges in construction bidding. And we are joined today by Lauren Coates from Daracon Group in Australia and Paul Johnstone from 4S Bids in Glasgow. So welcome to you both. Thank you for joining us either side of the time zone.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Well, by way of introduction, Lauren Coates is Daracon Group. She's the bid administrator based in Newcastle in New South Wales, and she comes with 20 years of industry experience, and she leads Daracon Group's public and private sector bids across civil engineering and transport, landscaping, mining, plant hire, property development, quarries, and site remediation. So lots and lots of business lines across the group. Daracon is a fast-growing Tier 2 construction company, and they offer whole of project solutions for large-scale projects. And so in doing so, they reduce the need to over-rely on subcontractors. And so that reduces the whole of life costs and the overheads and better control for their construction programs. And Lauren's also a current finalist in the 2021 Women in Building Awards. Congratulations in recognition of digital transformation of the Daracon Group. And she did that by actually embedding the BidHive platform across the group's operations, which is no mean feat. And Paul Johnstone joins us from 4S Bids based in Glasgow. 4S is a full service bid and tender consultancy, and they support clients across the UK and Ireland. They focus on research, bid strategy, and data and insight, which I absolutely love. And they support clients' bid responses from end to end. So Paul also has, interestingly, 10 years procurement side experience in preparing tender documents and also leading the evaluation of bids on behalf of procuring organisations. So he brings a really unique insight to this discussion. Paul is a huge advocate of building a pipeline and a repeatable system so that you can successfully bid for contracts again and again. And I think, Paul, your bid journey methodology, in fact, mirrors that of BidHive's end-to-end methodology. And so I'm really pleased to have you join us for today's discussion.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, so I think the importance of the construction sector to the world economy, I think it can't be underestimated. So I thought it would be a fantastic opportunity to bring two like-minded people together, like yourselves, from opposite ends of the world for a discussion to compare and contrast the sectoral impacts and the challenges across international regions during what is a very different time for everyone, but particularly your industry. And so I thought I'd kick off the discussion with my first question. I think really centers around construction being a really significant contributor to GDP and a significant employer. And so what are the main issues that is front in mind for your companies in the construction industry here in Australia and in Scotland? So I'll kick off with you first, Lauren.
Okay, so first and foremostly, being a Tier 2 contractor, Daracon, the main concern at the moment for us with growth and employment would be the percentage of Australian-owned mid-tier companies that are actually able to compete with the multinational companies in procurement bids. So 97% of Australia's largest infrastructure projects are delivered by Tier 1 contractors. And 80% of those contractors are foreign-owned multinationals. So that's obviously a massive problem for Tier 2 companies getting into the larger projects. We're usually comfortable with around $100 to $200 million contracts, whereas the bigger Tier 1 companies can obviously play with the big boys and they can take that risk that we just have no hope of being able to take on as tier 2 Australian owned mum and pop, really big mum and pop, but still family owned businesses. So I think that looking at what we can sort of do around sort of being able to create a solution for that would be in the procurement side of things, having to have some kind of industry sustainability. We have environmental sustainability, we have OH&S, we have all of the things that we need to meet, the criteria that we need to meet, but there's nothing for industry sustainability. There's nothing to say that if you can come and bid on this project as tier 2 contractors in a group, in a JV, then you can come along because it would be good for the industry in itself.
And I think you've raised a good point there. And Paul, I'll direct the same question to you and what's front of mind for you. But I think you've gone through Brexit and, you know, how's free trade agreements panning out for you and your market? And you know, is that in conflict with local participation or the buy local policies? And from putting your procurement hat on, you know, what prevails there, and what opportunities does this present for the smaller contracting companies?
Yeah, sure. So I think the challenge with the UK and Scotland is obviously we've gone through Brexit. We're also dealing just now with COVID and the challenges that's presented. And for all of the UK and Scottish government sort of agenda to promote opportunities for companies who are maybe not the tier 1 contractors of the world, in reality, it doesn't always come through from the procuring organisation. I think the procuring organisations are looking for, you know, the least risk option, and often that's maybe seen as the bigger companies with, you know, the biggest resources who've done big projects before. Now, that doesn't always necessarily mean that they're the best companies for those projects. Over the last sort of 5 to 10 years, we've seen a number of tier 1 multinational companies in the UK failing, actually going out of business because they're taking on projects at such low margins that one mistake in a project wipes out their profitability and they then can't fulfill the contract. And therefore, kind of like what Lauren was saying, was that, you know, there needs to be more actually done in not just talking about things in government policy, but actual reality about how do we give tier 2 contractors a fair opportunity to deliver some of these projects so that it's not always just the same companies doing the same projects, because therefore, back to the point about industry sustainability, how will the industry ever grow if it's the same companies delivering the same projects again and again?
And is that what you're seeing in your region as well, Paul?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, there is the kind of common pool of tier 1 contractors who seem to win, you know, the projects upwards of, you know, 100 million or maybe a bit lower than that. But yeah, it's the same companies that win those projects. And then, you know, for all the talk about, you know, opening up opportunities to smaller contractors, in reality, it doesn't happen. And part of the issue for companies in the UK and Scotland is the procurement rules are governed by EU legislation. So there has to be certain rules and things in place that make it difficult for SMEs and tier 2 contractors to compete on a level playing field with tier 1 contractors. So it is difficult to compete.
And so moving on to my next question, and I guess this is where the smaller businesses might be a bit more nimble. And how is technology impacting the industry, and not only in your bidding function, but also the expectations on you to deliver projects using technology improvements? And are you seeing a major shift in technology adoption, and what does that look like for you and the projects that you're bidding? Lauren, I'll start with you.
Well, obviously, there's been a massive uptake of BIM, building information modelling, over the last 5 years. And we're seeing a lot of the government contractors and things like that requiring these models and wanting the models updated while the project's being completed as well. So they have a whole of project view of how the process is running along. Even though it seems to be more in a design and pre-contract space that this BIM modelling is utilised, it does have a lot of impact on cash flow modelling, and so it's very important for planning and that sort of thing. So that's a lot of that is happening now, where we're being required to use the model and update the model as the project grows. And so now construction companies are looking at things like 4D planning on projects, with putting the extra D being time. So putting in the plan as well as the model, and having the program objectives clear to all parties and all the project milestones there on the model as it builds itself. So that's the sort of thing. And drones are big in construction, obviously, but yeah, a lot of that BIM information is quite important nowadays.
And what about you, Paul? What are you seeing
Yeah,
technology-wise?
similar. So the big thing has obviously been BIM. We work to BIM level 2 over in the UK. I'm sure that's going to continue to develop, but I think there has been quite a big adoption in construction, but in other related fields as well. Things like, on-site health and safety are all through technology apps now. There's very little paper-based, in terms of site audits and minutes for meetings and things like that. It's all using technology now, which is great. It means that things can be shared in real time. Clients can have access to updates. Site walkthroughs. It's all on video now, or it's much more live and up to date. So there is an adoption of technology, and I can only see that continuing, which is great. In terms of procurement and bidding, everything's now electronic. There's no hard paper-based copies of tender documents circulating. It's all online, which is good. So yeah, I think there is a great adoption of technology. I think there's still a long way to go, particularly within the bidding space. I think there's a lot that can still be improved on. So probably over the next few years, I would see that really taking shape and moving forward.
Well, here's hope so. Yeah. And so how are you adapting your bidding processes to build the knowledge and the capability, and as well as the resilience of your teams in the face of digital change? Lauren, how are you going with your teams across the group?
Well, we have an IT steering committee that meets quite regularly to spitball ideas and come up with ways that we can better collaborate online. Obviously, in the current climate, that's more important than ever. We have lots of operations involvement in that steering committee as well, so that we can have the guys in the field have their say what is not working for them. and what we can put into best practice. We are doing a lot of attendance at market sounding with our clients to try and sort of express the need for these larger projects that the tier 1 guys can get into, to be broken into smaller packages, to be able to allow tier 2 companies to be competitive in that market. Things like breaking design and construct into separate packages and things like that. So we're all being very proactive. It's just a matter of finding the right solution, really.
And is community consultation or stakeholder consultation, has that moved online?
There is. I'm only very slightly across the board on this, but there is a lot of cloud-based communication that we are and can use for community engagement. But there's still the same old letterbox drops and things like that, because there are still quite a few people in the community that aren't across tech and don't want to be, and they prefer their letterbox drops to stick on their fridge and things like that. So yeah, we're doing everything.
And what about you, Paul? How are you going? Obviously, working remote, working with presumably quite a lot of clients now. As you've been growing your practice, how are they going with their adoption?
So I work with a range of different companies in terms of size. So some who are less mature in the bidding for public sector contracts, up to quite large businesses who fully adopt technology and use best practice. So I see a range of different sizes and operations in terms of digital and technology in their bidding practice, but also in their kind of operational and delivery of projects. One thing that I'm keen to establish with clients is the use of technology and best practice. That's the whole point of what I'm trying to deliver for clients is best practice, and a big part of that is systems, processes and technology to make the whole process of bidding easier, more strategic, and sharing information across the company, instead of it being parts of information being held in silos and different systems and different ways. It's all got to be brought together so that ultimately the company as a whole can bid successfully for contracts on a more sustainable, regular basis. So I think in answer to your question, I see different things happening in different organisations, but it's trying to find the right solution for a particular client, depending on what their business is and what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, for sure. And to some common themes that I'm, in my research and listening to people from around the world, is that regardless of country location, they're all related to dissatisfaction with the tendering process. And, we really need to find a better way to improve collaborative contracting. What role do you think industry could play in helping to improve these processes? And do you think that bidding and procurement need to actually come together and work closer together to figure out a better way or a better long-term solution? Lauren?
Yeah, well, look, we're seeing it already now a lot more often, that when it looks like the project is going to be tricky and there are going to be hang-ups, there is a lot of early contractor involvement. We went through a process with Transport for New South Wales for one of our projects that we won in Sydney, of a 12-month early contractor involvement period where the two chosen contractors met with and collaborated with Transport for New South Wales over a 12-month period to iron out the kinks that were in the constructability of the project in order to find a solution that worked for both parties to a program that was able to be met. And in the end, Daracon won the project, and we're going ahead and we're building it now. Although obviously in lockdown that's quite hard, but it's happening not just in Transport for New South Wales, but some local council projects and things like that, where procurement are starting to realise that sometimes the contractor really does have a bigger voice than they're being given. And value can be added to the project by being able to iron out those kinks before contracts are signed.
Paul, what are your thoughts?
So I think I have quite a unique perspective on this one, because I've been on both sides of the fence, so to speak. I think one of the things for me coming into set up this business was to help, because the procurement process in the UK is so rigorous. It's so, there's so many rules, so much kind of process involved. That is a big frustration for bidders generally. And there is because of the kind of procurement rules and processes that we have to follow, there is a lack of kind of collaboration and communication between procurers and bidders before an opportunity comes out to market. So there has been a lot of effort put in to try and break down some of those barriers, and it is definitely improving. We see now that, particularly for larger frameworks or one-off projects, construction projects in particular, procurers are trying to engage with the market earlier, at least give some idea about generally what they're thinking in terms of what they're looking to achieve, and trying to get some feedback from the market that they can then either utilise and put into their final procurement strategy. Although I think, to be fair, there still is a long way to go. One of the things that I've tried to do is, to help, because I've got that unique perspective, is to try and help clients understand exactly what it is that a procurer is asking for. But having been now in the kind of bidding space for the period of time that I have, I now recognise some of the challenges that bidders face that I didn't actually realise before when I was in procurement. So it's trying to obviously be that kind of middle ground to say, well, yeah, these are the challenges, but this is how you kind of overcome them. But there does need to be a lot more improvement or collaboration between procurement and bidding, ultimately to help the procuring organisation achieve a better outcome. That's what they're really aiming to do. So much more is needed, I would say.
It's an interesting perspective that you do bring. Interesting that you came to the better side as well.
Yeah,
for the bidding.
Definitely.
And look, my final question is, we're about to, I guess, embark on the biggest global infrastructure spend, possibly in history, or at least since the global financial crisis. Infrastructure spending is going to be, really quite significant, and we've seen the budget forecasts published around the world. And are you both feeling optimistic about the industry's future? Lauren, what are you feeling?
The work is not going away anytime soon. the work will always be there, because we're going to have to spend the money to keep the jobs, to keep the economy. And so we'll all get a piece of the pie. And yes, the future of the industry is going to be very strong. It's just a matter of, I suppose, choosing the contracts wisely that you do decide to bid on, rather than a scattergun approach, because it's going to be burnout quickly if that's the sort of direction that you take. So yeah, no, I think that the industry's futures at the moment is quite strong, and it's quite exciting.
Do you think, and Paul made a good comment about, the bankruptcies. It was Carillion, wasn't it, Paul?
Carillion, yeah.
Carillion, sorry. Yeah. So do you think, or do you foresee, Lauren, that there might be some merger and acquisition activity going to happen? Do you think we'll see some industry consolidation in Australia?
I wouldn't even begin to know. I think that the sale of Lend-Lease is either pending or has just happened. Oh, sorry. But I can't speak to what obviously the other tier ones are doing. I don't have my finger on that pulse, unfortunately.
How are you feeling about the industry, Paul? What are you seeing over there?
It's still very strong. I would say when COVID hit last year, that was the first market that came back pretty quickly, and it kept things moving, I would say. And there doesn't seem to be any hold up or any shortage of pipeline of projects in the UK, in Scotland as well. There's lots of infrastructure spend. We have what we call growth deals, so regional growth deals, where it's looking at infrastructure, roads, transport, buildings. So there seems to be, quite a lot of work in the pipeline. And as Lauren's quite rightly said, the key, I think, for businesses will be to pick the projects that they bid for, rather than bidding for everything. And that's the whole message and ethos that I'm trying to promote with my business and the bid journey methodology. It's really important to pick the ones that you think you've got the best chance of winning.
Yeah, get that qualification process right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So any final thoughts about what success looks like for your companies and for yourselves, for your processes? What is it that you, apart from better qualification, is there anything else that you want to be able to implement into your organizations probably in the next 6 to 12 months to I guess leverage the opportunities that are coming to market?
I'm still halfway through BidHive, Nairi, so I'll keep that as my little pet project for the moment, I think. We're only, I think, 12 months into our little dance down the BidHive road with you. So there's quite a few of the business silos that I haven't sucked into the BidHive world yet. So that's my project, and that's where I'm heading. But I can't even think of anything else that is forefront for me at the moment for my department, aside from getting us online, getting us in the cloud, making sure that we have that business continuity to be able to keep going if someone walks into the building and coughs and we all go home. So that's extremely important for us at the moment.
Yeah. Oh, well, I look forward to skipping down the road with your other business units. And Paul, what does success look like for you and your clients?
Yeah, success for me is ultimately about helping clients win projects, win more work, and growing. And to do that, I've talked about it a couple of times. the bid journey methodology that we've developed at 4S Bid that aligns, as you say, very well with BidHive. It's about implementing best practice, not about bidding for every single project that you could potentially bid for, but having a kind of quality approach to identifying the right projects that are aligned to your business objectives, really going after the ones that you want to win and putting a real quality focus on them so that you rise above the competition and win those projects. That's really what 4S Bid and Bid Journey is all about. It's the best feeling in the world when a client phones you to tell you that the project that you've helped them on has been successful. There's no better feeling than that. And
it is a great feeling, isn't it, to shape somebody's destiny and to know that you've created so many jobs for people. I totally get that. Oh, well done to both of you for being part of such a vibrant industry. And I think from hearing your firsthand stories, the industry has definitely come ahead in leaps and bounds, particularly in technology adoption and look, really just in 12 months really to become a lot leaner, a lot savvier, and far more profitable. And look, considering it was probably one of the least digitized industries only 2 years ago, it's quite an amazing transformation in such a short period of time. So it might be a tough pill to swallow, but I think it's clear that companies that aren't investing in new technologies and innovative solutions, they really do risk being left behind. So I think it's definitely a really exciting time for the industry to bring together the technology, the data, and the collaboration. So I want to thank you both for sharing with us the challenges you've been facing in your sectors and in your parts of your world, and adjusting to the reality of the changes to your industry and into your work practice as well. So thanks again for sharing with us and sharing your stories with everyone.
No problem, Nari. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.